City News is looking at the carnivores that live along our coasts.
Meteorologist Elisa Raffa is joining us to talk about her new series. Elisa, I didn't even know, what is a horseshoe crab?
Fun fact, it is not a crab at all.
Really?
I know, I was like, are you sure? It's a scorpion. It's like more related
Really?
to
No way.
scorpions and spiders. And did you know it has 11 eyes?
No.
Yes, that's why I was like, what, where? They're like all over their body. Most of their
Oh, no
eyes,
way.
yeah, most of their eyes, they call photophores. So it's like, you know, when you close your eyes and you can see the light and then you move your hand and there, you see the shadow. So they just like detect light. Isn't that crazy?
That's the weirdest,
Yeah.
It's a great party trick to know about horseshoe crabs.
It's not a crab.
Yeah.
Look at me, gearing you up for your next party.
For real, this is good. Oh, why are they researching horseshoe crabs? Like, what's the significance of this?
So when they are babies, they live in these like intertidal areas. It's those areas at the beach that are like fully exposed in low tide and then, you know, fully covered in high tide. That's where they live when they're babies. And we don't know anything about them at that stage. We don't know what they eat, how they move, how they survive. Like, there's literally no research. So you're looking at Alexis Longmire, who decided, you know what, I'm gonna break barriers and I'm gonna figure it out. And they're so crucial to our seafood industry because they live amongst all the other seafood things, and they actually have a compound in their blood that's used in vaccines, and it was used in the COVID-19 pandemic.
What?
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable.
Isn't that crazy?
Why the delay in this research, and why now?
So they are so difficult to tag, right? So like last night we showed you how we can tag sharks. It's kind of easy to, like, you know, fish them up, stick a thing in them, let them swim
And then
on their way.
monitor them.
Yeah, these horseshoe crabs molt like a snake would or some other like shelled creatures. It could be like every 20 days, so they lose their whole shell.
So where do you tag them?
Right, exactly. Like, how do you can't track them because they're gonna, if you put something on it, you're gonna lose it because it's gonna be gone in 20 days. So what she's trying to do is inject a dye into like their leg tissue, you know, to see if she can like keep a little bit of a color in part of their leg. So then she can kind of see how they move if then she like finds it somewhere else and goes, oh, these are the yellow ones that I put over here, but now it's over here, to try to track the movement a little bit because you can't put anything on their shell. Isn't that crazy?
This is truly fascinating. Yeah. So you've had the chance to go out with the sharks. We learned a little bit last night. Tonight we're going to learn about this research. What was your favorite part about being out there on the boat learning about the horseshoe crabs?
I think it was so fascinating because there's so much that we don't know, and I learned so much, you know, about the 11 eyes, and they're used in biomedical research. Like, they're so crucial. And I loved working with these ladies because they were an all-female team breaking these barriers and just like figuring out things that we just don't know. So it was so interesting. They were so excited and so passionate about it and so knowledgeable. And I asked her, like, how does it feel to like be the first, you know? Like, I really truly believe in 10 or 20 years, we're gonna look back at her research and be like, Dr. Alexis Longmire figured this out for us. You know what I mean? Because she's really like the first one trying to figure this out. Isn't that crazy?
This is really
Fascinating
cool.
stuff,
It
and
is.
that story on tonight
at
at
10.
10. All right, Elisa Raffa, thank you. Thank you for all the time that you put on this series.
Welcome back. Queen City News is looking at the carnivores that live along our coast. Meteorologist Elisa Raffa is joining us to talk about the second part of her series airing tonight. So, Elisa, we're talking about horseshoe crabs. You've probably heard of them, but what are they and why are they so important?
They're not a crab, spoiler alert.
Oh.
Isn't that so
Why
weird?
are they called that then? It's so confusing.
I have no idea who decided to call it a horseshoe crab and why, but they're actually closer cousins to scorpions and spiders.
That makes sense. They look like it.
Yeah, so yeah, not a crab, which is kind of funny. They like to call them Roombas of the ocean because they just like will eat up, you know, whatever is like
all the
on
stuff
all the
kind
stuff.
of gunk, right?
Yeah, just all of the stuff, and they like to bury themselves into the sand. So to kind of pick them up, some of these ladies use clam rakes. If you've ever been clamming before, they have to try to use clam rakes to try to find them. So this is us out on that research boat at the UNC Institute of Marine Sciences. There's one of those little guys that we found. You kind of rake them up doing some of that clam raking. And so they're looking for these horseshoe crabs because no one has ever done research on them in their baby phase at all.
Wow. And why is that research so valuable? If no one's done it before, why start now?
That's what I asked her. I was like, so why did you pick this? And we need to know about how to conserve these horseshoe crabs. We need to know how to make these babies successful adults, because when they're adults, we use a compound in their blood in vaccines.
Fascinating.
It was like used in the COVID-19 pandemic. How crazy is that?
That is.
Isn't that wild? And they also live among some of the seafood things that we love, or creatures like sharks and stingrays and things like that. So with the way the food chain works, if you don't have horseshoe crabs, then you don't have this, and you don't have that, and you don't have that.
So that's why we should care.
Yes, that's why we need to care. But what's so cool about what Alexis is doing is we have never, ever been able to tag them before, right? Last night we showed you sharks.
Yeah.
Pretty easy to like tag them.
They're kind of big.
Yeah, and there's somewhere to put the tag, right? And you just toss it in. The horseshoe crabs shed their shell like some other crabs do, and snakes and stuff.
Yeah.
And it could happen like days and weeks apart. So you're going to lose your tag in the middle of the ocean without the actual thing attached to it. So she's trying to inject some dye into his legs to see if she can track him that way.
Fascinating. And I believe we need to hear from her too, right?
Yes, this is Alexis Longmire. She's a marine ecologist at the Institute of Marine Sciences.
Because if nurseries degrade, you don't have juveniles becoming adults. Less adults means less spawning, and then less juveniles, and it becomes a really horrible cycle. And so then you'll see populations decline, especially for fisheries that we rely on very heavily here in North Carolina.
Yeah, so they're so crucial to everything that we need in the sea, to that biomedical resource was so interesting to learn about. So
everything is so important to the
Yes.
ecosystem, whether
All
it's on
connected.
land, whether it's in the sea. You got to go on a shark tagging boat, and then you got to follow this incredible researcher around. What was the best part of this?
I loved, you'll see this is an all-female, all-lady team that's breaking barriers and doing something that no one has ever done before. So it's really interesting stuff.
I like it. Well, what a great opportunity to tag along, and you can catch that full report tonight on Queen City News. And then if you miss it, it'll be on qcnews.com.
Well, looking at carnivores on the coast, well, first we uncovered more than 50 years worth of shark data, and now we are going smaller scale.
Yeah, let's bring in meteorologist Elisa Raffa right now, talking carnivores and coast and these little itty-bitty horseshoe crabs. And you say they're not really crabs, though.
They're actually related to scorpions. I was
didn't know that.
mind blown.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that. I mean, you think it's a part of a crab.
It's called a crab.
Yeah, but it's kind of a scorpion. But question for you is, why are we studying these? Why are there so many resources and money going to looking at horseshoe crabs?
Yeah, so they're crucial to some of our seafood industry because they live amongst the things that we like, like sharks and stingrays and all of that. But they also estimate more than $1 billion worth of value in the biomedical industry because they have a compound in their blood that's used in vaccines. So it was actually used in the COVID-19 pandemic. They're so crucial to the way that we use medicine and stuff.
That's amazing to know that.
I
had no idea about that. But it really is something, the medical value out of that, but also a lot of other value that you find from horseshoe crabs as well.
Yeah, the fisheries economy. They live with some of the crabs and some of the shrimps and all those other things that we need and we want. So if you don't have horseshoe crabs, then you mess with the whole food chain there. And so that is also really crucial, but we just don't know a lot about these, which is why they're doing some of this research.
Okay, so we just saw video. You were touching and holding these horseshoe crabs, which yesterday we saw you holding the sharks. Today it's horseshoe crabs. But do they have teeth, or can they bite you? Did anybody nip?
No.
You got a stinger on there in the back, it looks like.
No, they have 11 eyes. I can tell you that.
Wow.
I didn't know that either. They have
to see you with.
Yeah, they have 11 eyes. Their mouth was somewhere on their center as well. And another crucial part of their body is that shell. And they molt that shell sometimes 20 days apart, weeks apart. That's how they grow. Kind of similar to some other shelled creatures or snakes and what have you. They get rid of their shell to grow. So the problem is you can't tag that. Yesterday we watched, you're tagging a shark, you have something to put in it and it will go on its way. You're not going to lose the shark skin. But you're losing the shell every couple of days and weeks. So it's really hard to tag because if you put something on the shell, you're going to lose it. So she's trying to inject a dye into its legs because the legs aren't going to go away with the shell.
And you show a lot of that tonight in the story.
Yeah,
Looking forward to
it's
seeing that.
so interesting. She shows us where she's got little colors, and she said, "Yeah, when I called the marine company and was like, oh, I need these dyes for horseshoe crabs,"
Right.
they're like, "What? Nobody's ever done that before."
Wow.
She literally never been done.
And go ahead. Yeah.
Was there anything that really, I mean, I just think this is just so fascinating. Was there anything that just stood out to you being there? I mean, besides the fact that horseshoe crabs have 11 eyes,
Yeah.
and you now know they're not really crabs, was there anything that really, of the research, that made you say, wow?
Yeah, I think it's so fascinating that we don't really know a lot about it in its baby stage. We don't know what it eats, how it moves, like all these things that we know for like every other organism, we really don't know. So Alexis Longmire, who you'll meet tonight, is really breaking barriers, and her all-lady team are the first to do any of this stuff. No one else has even been able to attempt it because it's difficult. So she's taking on a new challenge, and it's
Wow.
happening right here in North
I
Carolina.
was going to say, this is all happening in North Carolina,
Yeah.
which is really cool. They have
Yeah.
a lot of the sharks like last night, and then horseshoe crabs.
Yeah.
All right, Elisa Raffa, can't wait to see that
Thank
story
you.
coming up tonight at 10 o'clock.